And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship.
Facebook won't be censoring political content. And we now know that fact checkers were just another word for censors. They weren't checking facts, they were censoring inconvenient information. Let me know in the comments and chat if we can ever forgive Mark Zuckerberg for that. Someone should fact check the way that the syllables of his name roll off of the tongue. Meta says that fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that to be false. Let's see Mark Zuckerberg himself addressing these issues, and let's try to determine the following. Is it just that Meta's an international big tech platform and will do what is financially expedient? Is it that we're experiencing a seismic political shift around the world? Is it that Mark Zuckerberg has had some radical change of heart? Are we witnessing a new era of free speech and open communication? And all of the powers that were coalescing around neoliberal centre-left parties that now appear to be in decline and disarray with the resignation of Trudeau, the British Labour government, in total despair and meltdown, and the victory of Trump in the United States of America. Where is all that power now going to situate itself, and how will it be expressed? Let's have a look at Mark Zuckerberg speaking directly to us about this subject, and we'll be able to look right in his eyes and see if we trust him.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly.
It's interesting, really, because the online space is perhaps best regarded in the way that you might regard physical space. It's like a territory, it's like a nation, a state, a town, or a county. And in any nation, state, town, or county, you will experience the malign as well as the benevolent. So of course online there are legitimate reasons for concern. There is child exploitation, there is pornography, there is terrorism, and there are and by the way, there are conversations about most of those subjects. You know, like part of the cultural divisions that we've been experiencing so starkly are because some people see things that we regard as child exploitation as potentially appropriate fashion imagery and symbols. And when it comes to terrorism, there are some people that regard terrorists as freedom fighters. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And when it comes to drugs, there are people that say that we should have free access to drugs. So every single one of the bullet points listed there have complex moral arguments around them. I guess the issue is, who is the arbiter of morality in each of those subjects, and where do you derive your political and moral authority from? Particularly if you are ultimately a secularist, rationalist, individualist and materialist who believe that humankind are the apex of authority and power. So quickly, while Mark Zuckerberg appears to be positioning himself as a person who's just trying to ride his way through the rhythms and tides of an ever-shifting culture, and perhaps that's legitimate and true. I don't know Mark Zuckerberg's heart. Maybe he is someone who's just trying his best. Perhaps he is just like, you know, he is ultimately, I suppose, just a human being who invented something that became phenomenally successful and relevant and significant, and ultimately a tool of political, corporate and commercial power. And now he, like all of us, is just trying to operate within those systems. The challenge, I reckon, comes when we seek to regulate any of these spaces. Mark Zuckerberg's clearly moved from kowtowing, as that article in Reclaim the Net said, to Biden and centrists and globalists, and is now repoing himself at the most political level, it looks like, and the most obvious level. Let me know in the comments and chat if you agree with this, with new and resurgent nationalist right-wing powers and authority. But ultimately, though, where is a true and reliable authority that's not going to come and go with each administration, with each election?
So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people.
That was never the issue, wasn't it? The issue was never that they might accidentally censor 1% of posts. It was deliberately censoring people. It was deliberately censoring people that were talking about vaccine harms. It was controlling the conversation around COVID. It was censoring ultimately all political material. Do you remember the day when Instagram just flicked the switch where it said, "Oh, unless you flick this switch, you won't see any political content"? That's very different, actually, from what Mark Zuckerberg is describing. Complex systems might inadvertently cause censorship. It was a deliberate choice to censor. Yeah, this is brilliant. This is. So let me know what you think in the comments. But I see this as an aggressive rebrand, as their recognition that, oh my God, it hasn't worked. This experiment, this move towards globalism and totalitarianism under the auspices of care and concern, which reached its apex and zenith in the COVID-19 era, where if you look at it just as a sort of a simple template, oh no, there's a really dangerous situation, we have to protect you, therefore take this medicine, stay inside your home, wear that mask, stay 6 feet apart, don't you look at that news, we're censoring that information, don't listen to Joe Rogan. That has failed. It's failed. It's over. And now, there are attempts to malign the voices that support this kind of liberty and this kind of free speech, which, by the way, does have complex components to it.
And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes.
I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? The recent election seems to suggest that people don't like this anymore, and the people that do like it aren't in positions to grant big contracts.
Simplifying our policies and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X.
Get out of here, you fact checkers! The jig's up! People have realised that what you're actually doing is not checking facts, but censoring inconvenient information. And now is he literally about to say, we're going to do what they do on X, and I'm going to be a bit more like Elon Musk. I've just invented an electric car. I'm going to tell you something crazy. I like Donald Trump.
In today's world, it's more important than ever to take control of your digital security and financial freedom. That's where Ledger comes in. Ledger's new devices, Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex, make it incredibly easy and secure to take control of your digital assets. Your digital assets could be getting tampered with. Ledger's intuitive interface makes it easy for anyone to take control of their crypto, regardless of their experience level. When I'm dealing with crypto, I need my intuition, otherwise I get baffled. But more than just being easy to use, Ledger allows you to take control of your financial future, aligning with the principles of individual freedom and self-reliance we value. Did you know that Ledger is used by 7 million users and takes control of 20% of the world's digital assets? That's a pretty reliable credo. Take control of your digital future and start your journey towards financial freedom. Buy your Ledger device at shop.ledger.com/brand.
Starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth.
They did become the arbiters of truth.
But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
Wow, this is significant, isn't it? This is more than AOC removing the pronouns from the bio. This is a massive, significant cultural shift. If you see the impact that Elon Musk is having on American politics and British politics, primarily as a result, yes, of his financial power and political relationships, but let's face it, because he is the owner and arbiter of X's online content, presence, and discourse. Now that Mark Zuckerberg is saying we're not doing that stuff anymore, the world's going to change rapidly and radically. As we continually say on this show, the old elites and centralized powers have lost control as a result of technological change, and the new elites are formulating, and now we're watching it in real time, working out how they are going to manage the new political spaces.
What what started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
Wow, that's so incredible, isn't it? Would you have imagined 2 or 3 years ago that you'd be seeing this when people were getting cancelled for saying stuff? It got really, really out of hand. And look at it, it's like over. It was just a trend.
So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't.
Those bloody filters writing a letter to Anthony Fauci and telling him if he wanted anything removed from our platform. It was the filters that did that. Those bloody filters, they did January 6th. Them bloody filters, they released a bunch of viruses from a Wuhan laboratory. It's the filters.
So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed.
Can we see less politics? It's making people stressed. Could you lock us in our home? Being outside is making us stressed. Can you tell me what to think? It's making me stressed. This is an extraordinary pivot from Mark Zuckerberg and an indication of a globally shifting culture. In a sense, what the 2025 election of Trump represents is the end of the movement towards global totalitarianism. I don't think it means the end of evil, and I don't think it means the end of technological feudalism. I'm sure there's all sorts of ways that power can maneuver to ensure that you are captured, and I'm certainly not suggesting that the Trump administration is without flaws, but because I happen to have personal experience of a number of high-up officials within that movement, I feel like personally qualified to say that the way that, for example, big pharma and health, free speech and censorship will be handled will be a significant improvement on how it was being handled under the previous administration. And I think the genuflecting fluctuations and apoplexy in the UK is an indication that this mood and this movement will spread. And watching Mark Zuckerberg bend the knee and offer a mea culpa, let's take it in good faith as like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg has realised that he was heading in the wrong direction, or perhaps it's just a politically and economically expedient move to ensure that Facebook doesn't fade into total irrelevance. Whichever one of those it is, what we as a global community can take from it is that the world has changed, that particular era is over. You can't diagnose whether or not this is going to be a glorious new golden age for free speech and freedom more generally, but the old power doesn't have the tenacious grip upon the throat of the population it had a little while ago. Here's Chris Pavlovsky, Rumble CEO on X. Talk is cheap. Same with Daily Wire. We were literally #1 informational source on Facebook before censorship decreased our reach by 90%. That's pretty amazing. I wonder how it's going to impact platforms that have built their, platforms like Rumble and X are all about free speech. If Facebook becomes a free speech platform, will you start using it again? Let me know in the comments and chat.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.